Hi, Kev. Good evening.
Thanks for joining us. First of all, I mean, as I say, it seems like barely a day goes past when I don't read some story about a new plot to oust Rishi. We're talking about a 100-day Tory plot. Secret, of course. I love the way they say it in the paper. Secret plot. It's not very secret if it's in the Daily Mail or the Sun, is it? Another plan to replace him with Penny Mordaunt. What's your insider's take on all this?
Well, William Hague once said the Tory party was like an absolute monarchy, moderated by regicide. And it seems that Tory MPs have had a taste for blood, as we put it, in the last few years. They deposed 3 prime ministers in the last 5 years. So obviously, regicide is on their mind. I do think, as you said, there is a danger of actually overcooking these rebellions quite a lot now. We're quite close to an election. And I think the idea that the Tories are actually going to be so mad to appoint their 5th Prime Minister in as many years, I think would just go down so badly with the public. There is a school of thought among some Tory rebels, and there are some of them, who are very disgruntled with the direction of the country and Rishi Sunak's leadership, that you can't just limp into an election, which the polls show you're going to lose by an absolute mile. And they sort of play the 2019 textbook where Theresa May had an absolute drubbing in those European elections, and then a few months later Boris Johnson came in and led them to victory. The problem is, at the moment, it doesn't seem to be any viable king or queen over the water who would be a Boris-like figure to come in. You mentioned Penny Mordaunt. Well, this Operation Stop Penny seems to be motoring quite a lot, and I don't think that there's going to be many people apart from her own supporters that would really sort of want her in post. And, would she even want to do that? She's pretty much ruled it out in the Sunday papers. Same with Kemi Badenoch. Why would you want to manage the party into what looks like a pretty awful defeat as it looks at the moment? Because then you'd also, come under immense pressure to resign after doing that. So I don't really see it happening. I think Sunak's safe for now. I think he'll be the one to fight the next election.
I mean, he's had quite a good day today, and indeed yesterday, because he's claimed that Ireland's desire to return migrants to Britain it means that his Rwanda scheme is already acting as a deterrent, because the reason they want to return to Britain or that they head to Northern Ireland and then into mainland Ireland, into Ayr, the reason they do that is they're terrified that if they stay in Northern Ireland, part of Great Britain, of course, they could be sent to Rwanda. I mean, I think that's a bit of a stretch, to be honest with you. But he's done some good tough talking today, and I do read that he still feels there's an outside hope that he can turn the good ship Tory around. I don't think he can, but what are your thoughts?
Well, I can tell you that inside government, that Ireland intervention, where they demanded that Britain take back asylum seekers who have crossed into Ireland, has gone down so well in government, because they just see that as just an example of their deterrent working. I think in terms of the Tory prospects, I think this election is going to be all about immigration. It seems to be the one card he can play. Any sort of electoral strategist will tell you that you have to fight on the territory which you have the most strengths at. There's no point in fighting on the NHS. There's no point fighting on public services. Even the economy, while he claimed to make progress, people just don't really feel better. But immigration seems to be the only tangible thing where Tories have a proper dividing line with Labour. And if he can get flights off in July through the summer, he can point to a tangible effect in terms of stopping boats coming across the channel. He can then turn to Keir Starmer quite legitimately and go, are you actually going to scrap this now? You've said you're going to scrap this plan. It shows to have a deterrent effect. And you say that something which is so important to the British people as illegal immigration, you are going to completely scupper this plan. And then what's your own plan? Now, obviously, that massively hinges on, 1, flights going off the ground, and 2, then them having a realistic prospect of deterrence, and that's going to be borne out in the stats. But if he can do that, then I do think there's an outside chance that he can try and pull things back in the polls.
And in terms of Penny Mordaunt, the potential challenger, some politicians, in fact, quite a few politicians, they have these moments, don't they? This one utterance that they say that basically dictates the rest of their career. So would you say, Jack, that looking back on that House of Commons moment when Penny Mordaunt addressed the House and stridently assured them that a trans woman is a woman, would you think that's the defining moment of her career and why she can never be Tory leader?
Well, I'd say the defining moment of her career so far, or what most people will know her for, is carrying that sword,
you're going to say the sword.
At the coronation. Is what most people probably know her for. But it is true that in the last 2 times that Penny Mordaunt has ran for leader, obviously both of the times in 2022 against, she lost to Liz Truss and then Rishi Sunak, that her political enemies were dredging that clip up and sending it to political journalists like me, as often as they could. And it was definitely seen as a chink in Penny Mordaunt's armour. It is something that Tory activists and Tory MPs feel very strongly about. And so, yes, it will definitely harm her chances. But as I said, I don't think there's an opening at the moment for her to come in any sort of realistic form.
And economically, how are we looking? I mean, can Rishi look to a more prosperous future for us all? It doesn't look like it to me.
Well, he set out 3 economic priorities when he first came in 2023, and it was halving inflation, tick, growing the economy, hardly any progress on that whatsoever. They can point to some tangible growth, but we're talking about like 0.1% here. It's really not a lot. And then reducing debt, which is on course to fall in a few years, but not at the moment. The problem is that all of these metrics don't really make a difference. If you're telling people, oh, you should feel better because inflation is falling, when they just don't. And we are coming out of the back of a cost of living crisis. But, some readers the whole time when they email me say they don't feel much better at the moment. And so, it's very, very hard to sort of shake off that narrative. Now, the problem is that I don't think that Labour also have a solution to this, because their tax and spend policies are almost identical to the Conservatives. The only real thing that they have differently is taxing private schools. Now, that won't make the blindest bit of difference to the average voter. And Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves are trying to hug the Tory position so tightly just to make themselves the smallest target as possible, because actually, at the moment, according to the polls, they don't need to come up with some massive radical solution for change. They just need to go, well, I'm not them. And at the moment, it's working for them.
And to go back to the migrant crisis, I believe over the last few days, 500 more have come across the channel. He's making no headway whatsoever into stopping the boats, isn't he? If anything, it's getting worse.
Yeah, and the problem is that last year, overall crossings fell by 36%. And Sunak was very, very quick to take credit for that and say that his deals with Albania were working, and that his deal with France was working, and that even the Rwanda deterrent was already having an effect. The problem is that they're now on the up. And in the period from January to April, they're 24% up on last year. And now, while he's very quick to take credit for it all this year, he's very quick to shirk the blame for it this time. Now, it is true that the gangs in France are getting much more adept to police tactics, and they're cramming many more people into boats. You're getting an average 50 migrants per boat now. When this first started back in 2018, you were getting about 20 people in a boat. So they are becoming much more dangerous, and because of that, you're getting much more people across. But you're right, at the moment, the numbers are going the wrong way. And it really is, as I mentioned before, really is dependent on this Rwanda plan to sort of bring things home now.
Yeah, and good luck with that. I mean, this is a guy, we have like 2 weeks of terrible weather, storm conditions, and guess what? No boats come across the channel. And he goes, you see, my Rwanda scheme is working. And then the sun comes out and we have something called summer, and they stream across in their thousands. And as you say, he goes quiet then. So I think it may well spell very bad danger for him at the next election. Jack, really pleased you joined us. Please do it again. Thank you.